Hello, friends, and welcome to a before and after, and is fitting with Westeros and Essos and Longclaw behind us, and I can show you that we are wearing our Arya and Tyrion shirts.
Yes.
It is before and after the final episode of Game of Thrones, the final episode of Game of Thrones, which is kind of sad, actually. It's pretty sad. This will not be a discussion on the merits and the pros and cons of the final season or anything like that, and any of that stuff that's been talked about plenty. Honestly, I don't, even though I've talked a little bit about my feelings on some of that as it's progressed, I don't feel like having a big discussion about that until it's done. Because I don't think you can fairly judge any of this until you see what the final story is.
Yep.
So this will be more our thoughts before the episode and our thoughts after the episode, just based on the episode itself and not the surrounding conversation, which is obviously very large right now. So to start with, let's go with the easiest question. What is your prediction for the main plot? What do you think is going to happen tonight?
I think that somebody's going to kill Daenerys. And it's...
If you had to guess, who do you think it is?
Arya. I could go Jon too. One of them two.
Right.
But I'm going to go Arya. Although it would be interesting if, because of last week, her choosing not to do her list, if she continues to choose to just turn.
Not be violent.
Not be an assassin anymore and not. But in the preview, she was still in King's Landing, it looked like.
So distress.
Yeah. So it may be like, this is the last thing I have to do before I can move forward. Who knows? But that would be my guess, would be Arya kills Daenerys. She may do a face thing. I mean, I think it would make the most sense for her to do a face thing. I think most of Daenerys' people aren't going to be able to get close to her. Like, I don't think Daenerys is going to allow Jon to get close enough to kill her. Because I think she's going to know that Jon's not going to be okay with what she did. So I don't know that she's going to let him close enough. Whereas Arya can take a face. Now, we also haven't seen Arya do the face thing in a long time.
Since Walder Frey.
Even when it would have made more sense for her to wear a face.
Last time we saw the faces is where Sansa finds her bag of faces.
Right. So we know she at that point had them.
Yeah.
But she has not used them when it would have made sense to use them.
They've not done magic in a while.
Yeah, so maybe they're not going to do that. Maybe she's
Arya's magic, because they did do Melisandre's
magic.
Yeah.
They haven't done Arya's. And so I wonder if maybe they're not going to want to do that. Plus, I mean, Maisie's such a great actress. I wonder if they're like, well, let's let her do this stuff because she's incredible.
So you think one of them, and so then what does that set off?
Then that sets off what comes next. It could set off like a battle,
or what do you think? I mean, who's the ruler at the end of this, in terms of prediction? If Daenerys dies, is there someone sitting on the Iron Throne?
No, I think it's just independent. I don't know that there's going to be,
So what do you think happens to Jon?
So I think Jon exiles himself. I think he's just so saddened by...
To Tormund.
Yeah, he just goes up to Tormund and goes to the north. Maybe he restarts the King's Night's Watch. Yeah, but I don't know.
So we're similar. I do want to add this caveat that Game of Thrones is known, we talked about this before, for subverting your expectations. They're not known for killing the main characters. They're known for doing a thing you didn't expect. Mm-hmm. That's ultimately what it is. And what's key in this, and it's where I don't know how it falls. Right now, everybody thinks Daenerys is going to get killed.
Yes,
and everybody thinks it's going to be Jon or Arya.
Right.
That's what everyone thinks.
Right.
So it's possible she doesn't die.
Right.
Because that is subverting your expectations. But at the same time, you can make the argument that Daenerys being killed in the final episode is a huge unexpected thing.
Right.
Because most of the show, you would have not thought that. You would have thought she's going to make it through.
She's going to rule. Win, yeah.
Da-da-da. That being said, a gun to my head, I would probably go along the lines of... I could see... the details are not clear, but I think Arya kills Daenerys using Grey Worm's face. And I don't know if Jon kills Grey Worm. I feel like we're going to have an inevitable Jon Grey Worm fight.
Yeah.
But something that popped in my head this week, for the first time that it was just really clear, we saw Daenerys talking to Grey Worm in High Valyrian.
Yes, that's true.
Because she calls him the actual term Grey Worm, like whatever that name was, that translates to Grey Worm.
Mm-hmm.
That seems intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Is she talking to him in a language? So, for instance, if Arya puts on his face, but she can't speak High Valyrian,
right? Yeah.
Can she not? Is that intentional? Is that how Dany's trying to protect herself? It was so that Jon could not understand what she was saying.
Right.
So it's like she's insulated herself because she's had threats and all these things. So that plays a factor. But I'm in line with you, where Arya kills Daenerys. I think dies in this process. I don't think she survives it, whatever that means. And you get Jon with Tormund and Ghost in the north, and you get Sansa ruling. You get Sam at his area. You get Gendry at his area. You get the Prince of Dorne. You got the Tullys. Like all the areas, just Yara. All the Seven Kingdoms just get split back up.
Right.
Because we actually have, if Tyrion stays alive and he goes to Casterly Rock, if Bronn happens to get Highgarden, you actually have one singular person left for each of the kingdoms. So that's possible that it could happen that way. But saying that, I just don't know that that's what's going to happen. I really don't know what's going to happen. If I had to guess, that's what I'd guess. But if you said that ending or every other ending, I would pick every other ending.
Yeah.
Because I just I don't feel like that's what's really going to happen.
Right.
I just can't think of anything better. So we're similar there. Our named characters that are still alive, let's see if we can think of them all. In the north, we have Brienne and Sansa and Bran. We have Sam and Gilly and Baby Sam and new Baby Sam, wherever they went. Tormund and Ghost, way in the north.
Yeah.
Those are the people we haven't seen.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else in that group that we have not seen?
I mean, there's like the not as big people. I mean, there's Gendry.
Oh,
went,
But our main characters.
Yeah, the ones that we kind
you've got Gendry, you've got like the Tully guy.
Yeah.
But the other houses, the Karstark, some of those people. Yeah, I don't remember who's still alive.
Yeah.
Then you've got Yara. The Iron Islands.
Yeah.
With no one else.
That's it. Yeah.
The rest of the Ironborn. And then in King's Landing, you have Daenerys, you have Grey Worm, you have Davos, you have Jon, you have Tyrion.
Arya.
And I think that's it. I think that's all of our named characters left. And Drogon. That's all of our named characters left. Back to our thing, you do have the problem, both from a real world and story mechanic. How do they kill Daenerys without killing Drogon? Yeah. And why would she not be near Drogon at this stage when she is she's just done the biggest thing.
Right.
And she knows she has backstabbers and Jon's not going to be pleased and Tyrion's not pleased.
Especially if Grey Worm tells...
Who kills Drogon?
Yeah.
You know, and yes, conceptually, if Daenerys is dead long enough, Drogon could bond to Jon.
Right.
But that takes a lot. There's a lot of time that needs to happen for that. So...
Right. Yeah, there's not a lot
That's
of time
a problem
left.
that gives some credence to maybe Daenerys survives because she has the nuclear bomb and no one else can use it.
Right.
But going back, we have all those named characters. That's all that's left. Not very many. Who do you think are the most likely super main characters to die tonight? What is the big deaths left to happen outside of Daenerys?
I mean, I think Jon's a possibility. I don't know that it's as likely as Arya, but I think he's a possibility. There's just been so much foreshadowing with him in the North stuff with Tormund and Ghost that you just wonder if he's just going to go off and exile himself because of everything that's happened. Plus, it would be really rough if both Daenerys and Jon, like the people that the entire time have been these people and they both die. So I would say probably Arya over Jon. I don't want that to happen. Daenerys, Arya, Grey Worm. Grey Worm's got to go. If Daenerys goes, Grey Worm goes.
What about the majors? Jon, Daenerys, which we talked about. Sansa, Arya, Tyrion.
Sansa's not going to die.
Brienne's
not going to die, in my opinion.
Bran. I think those.
I don't think Bran's going to die. I think that we'll at least have Sansa and Bran Stark. We'll have Brienne. I just don't think there's any reason.
The people that weren't in the last episode.
The people are in the north are safe. They're however many hundreds of miles away.
I'm not sure we see any of them except for Sansa.
I hope we do. I hope we see Sansa. But yeah, I think they're all safe. It's just the people in King's Landing who are in danger.
I think if you said a true main character from the books of point of view character dies, if we were guaranteed of that, outside Daenerys, I would have to pick Tyrion. Because I don't know where he has the most oblique, is that the right word? Like opaque, I guess what I'm trying to say. Or I have no idea where he goes.
Right.
Right now we know he has no family left.
Right.
He has no house to go back to. The world doesn't know the good things he's done.
Right.
They know him as just the imp.
Yeah.
The imp that Cersei had a bounty on his head. And he just betrayed his best friend.
Right.
For the queen, and he was wrong.
Right.
So
right.
he's got a very troubling arc, unless he's going to be the hand of whoever becomes the king.
Right.
That's I don't know. But
at the same time, does he need to be the hand? Because
no, right.
how well has he done as hand the last 6 months?
You know, he's made a lot of bad decisions. I mean, but I don't think enough people are saying he did say they're going to ring the bells and surrender. They'll turn on Cersei when they see the battle's lost, and it did happen.
Yeah, he knew. Yeah.
And they did listen to him. Now, fairness, all things being equal, they've been listening to him for a long time, and it's cost them person after person after person.
Right.
So there is an element where you could see, last time that you said this, then the mountain comes out and kills everybody,
right?
Because it's a trick or whatever. So Tyrion is I don't know. I just genuinely don't know. Yeah. But I also think he's a likely candidate to get a happy ending, more so than a lot of them. I don't see a happy ending for Arya in the sense of she talks to the Hound and she decides she's not going to kill people on her list. Mm-hmm. Is there an ending where she goes and she's with Gendry? I don't think so. She may make the choice to do that and then gets killed.
Yeah.
But is there a choice where she becomes the Lady of Storm's End? Because she doesn't want that. But maybe she does want that. Now, we don't know what the thing that clicked in her mind really was.
Yeah, I think that there is a chance for that, but not traditional. I think there's a chance for them to have a more non-traditional, her not to be the typical lady. Technically, that's maybe what they call her, but her to wear pants and not have to wear the fancy dresses and not have to have the fancy hair. Still be her, but still be with Gendry.
I think her with Gendry in Storm's End is incredibly unlikely. I think her with Gendry in some form of Gendry becoming the king, or they are serving together as Sansa's guard, or like something like that.
Yeah.
Is more likely than they just go retire to the castle.
Yeah.
I just don't see that ending for her. Even though, like I said, I think she may die if she kills Daenerys, it does seem that Arya and Sansa have been made to be the two true heroes of the show. Mm-hmm. At the end, they seem like they're ones who are going to be on top the most. Sansa has a very strong claim to say, look, I told you.
Yeah.
I told all of you.
Right.
And you didn't listen. And if you think about the world that they've set up here with the politics and all this stuff, she also is going to get people to listen to her. Like, people be like, why do we listen to Sansa?
Right.
She now has a political claim more than a lineage claim.
Right.
So if there is a democracy, if they try to get to a vote, if somehow they can find a way to hand wave, because it would have to happen lightning fast, but the pacing's been that way, to get to that, I think Sansa becomes a ruler. In terms of if someone is going to sit on the throne, if you were known there is going to be an Iron Throne and there is a ruler, if they told us that, who would you pick? If that was known knowledge.
I think if there is one, it's offered to Jon and he says no and he gives it to Sansa and he leaves. I think he's leaving up north regardless. I don't think he's going to rule.
I think if there is an Iron Throne, if we know it's guaranteed and there is a singular ruler at the end of it, I think it's Daenerys. I think she does not get killed. And she wins. She actually wins.
Just kills everybody and then everybody dies.
Yeah. Or maybe no one else dies. Maybe now she just, I took King's Landing by force and now this is my world.
Yeah.
So be it.
Yeah.
I did a military conquest. Do you think we see Ghost? Do you think it was misdirection when they played up the animation's hard and we're never, do you think we see him again?
I don't think so, unless we actually get a scene of Jon reuniting with him up north. I don't think there's going to be a battle and Tormund and Ghost running to
No.
save the day like I thought there potentially could be. I don't think there is that.
Jon pet the dog? Do we get that scene?
I don't think so. I think they would have put it in the last one if they're going to. And they made this so long ago, it was already done. It's not like they can put it in there now because of the backlash. Like, there's not enough time.
I think it's possible that it was misdirection and they have a really nice scene, but I think it's more that the direwolves were just never as important in the show as they were on the books.
Well, and I always think that any kind of this stuff, because I had to do this with Harry Potter too. Just because something didn't happen on screen doesn't mean it didn't happen. So in my mind, he had a loving embrace with Ghost before that final scene. They already did that off screen, and then he's just like walking away, like, bye, we've already done that. So that's what happened.
Well, and
in my
because he's a warg, even though they haven't talked a lot about that in the show. When he looked at Ghost, he can communicate with him.
Right.
So
right.
it's hard. I mean, you can believe what you want to believe.
Yeah.
Who do you think? So if you haven't watched Lost, spoilers for Lost, that's 10 years old. Just fast forward like 25 seconds. The final scene of Lost, the very final thing is Jack and his eyes closed, just like his eyes open at the beginning of Lost. Who gets the final shot before it fades to black? It doesn't have to be one person. Just what do you? And I don't. The context doesn't matter. Just who is it?
Well, I'm gonna go with Sansa. Because in my prediction, she would be the one on the throne if there's a throne. And so I'm going to go with her. And even if she's not on the throne, she's going to be ruling the North. And I think out of the rulers that I thought would be left, she's the most important and the most one that people would know. So I'm going to go with Sansa. Although I kind of think Jon too. So I don't know. Sansa, though, is my answer.
So it's really hard. Because if Dany is not dead, it's going to be Daenerys on the Iron Throne.
Yeah.
If I have to put context in it and just make a guess, I would say the final shot is Jon at the ruins of the wall giving some people the Night's Watch oath.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how, with them, them reciting the Night's Watch Oath, which is also right there on that sword. There. That just seems thematic.
Right.
Or also thematic, if he dies in some capacity, or Arya dies, or somebody, it would have to be a Stark, and it has to be tied to Jon. The closing of their eyes, and now his watch has ended. That's how the show. I mean, that would be a thematic line to be the final line.
Right.
So maybe that's what. Somebody's at the door. Ding dong. So we're gonna get ready for Game of Thrones. We'll talk to you after it's over, probably weeping and confused and all that. But ding ding ding, somebody's at the door. Talk to you soon. Say rub it.
Rub it.
And we're back. Damien just left. We had a party, had people over. Megan went home a little while ago. Damien went. David's upstairs playing. We got to drive him home. So we're going to be brief. We may record something separate tomorrow. Longer. About our thoughts. But we want to finish this video and get it up so you can watch it tonight if you're interested. So, first, just your overall thoughts. Just a paragraph.
I really enjoyed it. My eyes are so puffy from the crying, but the crying wasn't always bad. Sometimes I was so happy I was crying too. Or it was just such a meaningful scene. I thought it was great. I thought they did it. They stuck the landing. I know there's, been people that haven't liked this season as much. And like last week, after watching last week, I thought, I don't know that I can watch this show again, like as a rewatch. But after tonight, I'm immediately like, I need to watch it again. So this episode did it. And that's what sometimes you do have to reserve judgment until you see the ending. And
like we said before.
Yeah, and how everything's going to come together because you just don't know. And I really, really enjoyed it. It was very emotional and it felt right, I guess.
Yeah, I cried multiple times and then probably for like 40 straight minutes. And a lot of that is, this is an ending of sorts for a thing that has been in my life since I was in high school. And I'm very hopeful that George will finish the other two books and I'll get to come back to this in 5 or 10 years. That would be great. But So there was an element, and even just the show itself, it just set in on how much I'm going to miss this, how much I'm going to miss looking forward to Game of Thrones every year, every couple years when it comes on, being able to share it with Victoria and friends and lots of people that I get to share this with, highs and lows, and that's sad that a shared experience comes to an end. I've talked about in another video, the shared experience that this has brought to people. Which, as we've seen in the last few weeks, has kind of been a negative side of it too. I loved it. I think for where they were going into this episode, it was as good as it could be. I think people that hate on this episode or hate on the season, if you say, I don't like it that what happened to Daenerys and the character, okay, that's certainly fine. But that's a story. That's going to happen in the book. Something like this is going to happen in the book. If you say, why is Bran sitting on the throne? Okay, but that's going to happen in the book. These are things that have to be part of the book. These are not choices. This was always going to be the story. I'm fine with all that, but if you just hate on it or say, this was not a badly written episode, it was not badly directed, it was beautiful. So I loved it. It was emotional. And to me, the last 45 minutes, it was a happy ending for almost everybody that was left. It was relatively happy in the sense of what could be happy for them. So I think we're both in agreement there. I know Dave and Damien both enjoyed it as well. So let's just kind of go through the characters and how things wind down. I think it's the easy way to talk about it. So the big story is Daenerys. We'll just start there. And lots of beautiful imagery where she lands and Drogon is behind her and Drogon's wings and she is the dragon. Mm-hmm. So kind of talk about what you thought about the first half of her arc in this episode, where she is giving, at least in Valyrian and possibly in Dothraki and Valyrian, giving victory war speeches to her legions of armies as like the conqueror. Mm-hmm. Talk about kind of that element, what you thought about that, the first half of the episode, up till the big moment.
I thought, frankly, it was kind of terrifying because of what she was saying. You did, at first it's, you did your promises, you did this, you did that, you did that.
It was good, we're going to keep going and doing this.
But then it was, you freed the people of King's Landing from Tyrant. I'm sorry. Who's left in King's Landing? That one guy that's like almost burnt to a crisp that we saw? You freed that guy from a tyrant, or you are now a tyrant? And then it's like, we will continue to do this in Winterfell. Oh,
from
no.
sea to shining sea.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh, this is scary. And then in the beginning, Jon had to come to terms with it. Last week's episode was not enough to completely flip him yet. It's like he still was loyal to her. He didn't agree with her decisions, but he was still trying to be loyal to her. Now, and part of that, I think, is like...
He's just loyal.
He's loyal.
Period.
That's his nature. But also, what's he going to do? Immediately turn on her in front of all those... Like, it's also, you kind of have to survive and say, okay, let's just see what she's going to do. Like, so that was a little scary, too. I was like, oh, no, she's going to come for Winterfell. You're going to have to do something, Jon. You're going to have to take care of something.
Yeah, I mean, you got this, where Arya's kind of creeping around and Tyrion's creeping around. I was terrified for Arya. And we don't know what they're doing, and they're really just all kind of gathering to hear her speech. That's all that's happening.
Yeah.
But it's putting you on the edge of your seat. You're just terrified. Who's going to do what?
Yeah, and I'm like, the Dothraki are there? Arya, you need to get away.
But, I mean, even, Arya Daenerys the Conqueror, who we don't necessarily like, there was still an element to me that it was rewarding to hear the Dothraki be praised for fulfilling their obligation, promises, and Unsullied. And even as much as you don't like Grey Worm at this point, hearing him get a title is still fulfilling. It's still fulfilling for the character arc.
Yeah,
I thought.
Yeah.
There's not much about Grey Worm until his very last part that you feel bad for him.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was good to see them recognized and fulfill their character's journey. So we like that.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff we can talk about that. We might get into in a different video. But then we get to the big part. So Tyrion throws away being Hand of the Queen. She knows that he betrayed her. That scene was just Tyrion. That scene was just really good. And then he's imprisoned. And we get the big scene where Jon comes and talks to Tyrion, a scene that we've got several times. And the show and the books have taught you that when Jon and Tyrion talk, it's important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, going all the way back to where they're talking on the wall. And, you know, that's one of the first, the imp and the bastard talking. It was really important, which they call back to in their last scene together. So Tyrion basically says, you know, long story short, because we don't want to be on here forever, you have to kill Dany. You're the only one that can do it. You have to kill Daenerys. So we go back to our predictions. We thought either Arya, Jon. Arya was never in play in that. Mm-hmm. Never. She was ready to leave. Yeah. Jon was like, meet me at the gate. Let's go.
Yeah.
And even when they talked, and she talked about, I was here to kill Cersei, and I know that Daenerys is a killer, but she never makes any inclination that she wants to kill her. So what that means, we talked a little bit about whatever the conversation she had with the Hound worked. Mm-hmm. She doesn't want to be a killer anymore. Mm-hmm. So then we just get probably the most powerful scene in the story to me, where Daenerys is walking in the throne room with the ashes falling all around her, and the throne exposed, and the Game of Thrones theme music is being sung at that point, and you see the moment that we've cheered for years until an episode ago happen, and it is bittersweet. It's a mixed emotion. And she puts her hand on the throne, and then you can see Jon appear behind her. And when she turns to him, all of a sudden, she's warm, she has color in her skin, and she's smiling. And it's like she's a child again. She tells the story about when she heard about the Iron Throne, and they said it was made of 1,000 swords, and she couldn't even count to 20. And she's embracing him, and we can rule together, and all this stuff. And I just thought Emilia Clarke was as good as she's ever been in this episode. So what are your thoughts on that? The scene with her first.
Yeah, that was incredible. And when she walked in, I thought, I think she's gonna die in this scene. I don't think she's gonna sit down. Or she's gonna sit down and die on. Like, I was thinking either she's not gonna get there, or she's gonna, and she didn't.
She
sit.
did not
she touched
ever.
It,
she never sat on the throne.
Or she's going to sit and be killed on the throne. That's what I thought was about to happen. I
In
thought
fact,
somebody was there.
The last time we saw somebody sit on the Iron Throne was when Cersei did at the end of
Yeah,
season
it's been
6.
a long time. Yeah, but I thought it was beautiful. She did seem different with Jon. I wonder why she trusted Jon still and allowed him to get that close. But perhaps it's just she trusts him. I mean, she loves him. And it's like they said later.
I took it as it's all she has left.
Yeah.
And she has to try.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't mean that as a conscious effort. I mean that as a heart effort.
Yeah.
That's it. If it's not Jon and I, then it is only me.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, he has been loyal, and he's always been true to his word, and she's seen him choose his word over things that would have made it easier for people, like with Cersei. So maybe she really did think, like, he's going to be loyal to me. But yes, Emilia Clarke has been incredible this season. She's always been great, but this season in particular, she's really had to do some difficult work.
Really challenging things.
I don't know how she's done it, and she's been incredible. And that scene was incredible. Him coming in, I was pretty sure it was going to happen, especially since when he left Tyrion in the scene prior.
There was nothing else to happen.
Tyrion mentioned the sisters. Like, that's what's going to do it for Jon, his sisters, because they're not going to bend the knee, especially not Sansa. So,
and we just get him saying, he says, okay, yes, all right, we'll rule together,
right?
And it's you'll always be my queen, and he stabs her with his dagger, not with a sword. Yeah. So I mean, he does carry that dagger. So I'm glad, because it would have made no sense for him to draw his big sword, and that wouldn't have happened. An important thing before that, a very cool scene where he is walking into the Red Keep, and he walks by Drogon, who's covered in ashes, and wakes up.
Yes.
And Drogon, it's almost like Drogon knows. He looks right at him, and he just stops and looks at him, and the Drogon lets him go. And we know, because Jon is a Targaryen, Drogon's not going to hurt him, or we don't think he'd hurt him, and conceptually we don't think he can burn anyway.
Right.
Targaryens can't burn.
Right.
So, that's important.
Yeah.
Which we did not talk about. We talked about you have to deal with Drogon to kill Daenerys, But it's important to think, really, he's the only one that could kill her with the reaction we knew Drogon was going to have. Right. Because Drogon will kill whoever else did.
Right, that's true.
And he won't kill Jon, which is what happens.
Right.
So it is devastating to me.
Yeah.
And he kills Daenerys, and it's a beautiful death scene. And just broke my heart. I mean, she is my favorite character in all of things, media, literature, otherwise. And I don't think that changes now. I was very upset at the path her character took, but then it became very Shakespearean at the end. It was a true tragedy, that she got what she had to do to get to the point where she always wanted is the thing that brought her down, at least in her eyes, what she thought she had to do.
Right.
So what about the just the stabbing and Jon's reaction and the Kit Harington was great.
Yes.
In this episode.
Yes.
All of them were.
I
mean, everyone was at top level.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you think?
I think
and we're going to talk a lot about this scene because it's the most important.
Huge, yeah. I thought it was incredible. I mean, I knew that was well, and of course, at one point you hear the noise and you're like, which one stabbed who? But I was pretty sure he had stabbed her. And I liked that it wasn't. I liked the way they did it. Actually, I like it more than if it had been Arya. Yeah, it was intimate, but it was kind. I mean, it was like he stayed with her. He lowered her to the ground. It was like it's not. I don't know. It was beautiful. And
you believe him when he said, "You'll always be my
yeah,
friend."
Yeah.
You believe.
He didn't want to do this. He did this to save who knows how many thousands of people.
Yeah.
And he knew this is what he had to do, and I think it is what he had to do. But he got no joy in it. It was extremely difficult for him to do it. He didn't want to have to do it. This is out of his character, but he did it anyway to protect people, because that is in his character, is to protect others.
And then you get another first of all, incredibly CG production scene, but just devistating, where Drogon knows that Daenerys is dead and flies up.
Yeah, you can hear him first.
He's crying.
Mm-hmm.
He's just crying for her. And, probably the most iconic scene of the show, like in terms of if you had one still image of Game of Thrones, where we think he's going to kill Jon, his flames up, but even though, we don't think he can kill Jon, but it looks like he's going to attack Jon.
Right.
He could certainly eat
him,
Jon,
yeah.
But that's not what we understand happens with dragons and Targaryens.
Right.
And then he's just flailing is what he's doing. He's just flailing because he's in anguish and pain that his mother's died. And then he turns and he burns and melts the Iron Throne, which the shot of Drogon burning the Iron Throne is pretty iconic for this. And then approaches Daenerys like a dog would. Yeah. And sniffs her and is nosing her and trying to roll her over. And then grabs her in his hand? Talon?
I don't know
what you
what
call a dragon.
Yeah.
And flies away. Never to be seen again. Yeah, claw and leaves. Yeah. Never to be seen for the rest of the show. And I think we would assume never to be seen again. That he's going to go more for the rest of his life. The last of the dragons. Yeah. He's lost his brothers. He's lost his mother. Drogon ultimately has one of the very saddest arcs in the show. So I thought this was as good as you could do a thing. So if you compare, like the Thanos Thor scene in Infinity War is great. Mm-hmm. But remember that Thor is actually acting with Josh Brolin. Josh Brolin's wearing the thing with the thing. He's looking at him. Yeah. This is not a real thing.
Right.
There was no Andy Serkis as Smeagol motion. Yeah. This was all CG. Complete hats off to the team that does that work, because that's it hurt me so much. Yeah. For Drogon and Dragon again, you've heard me talk is my very favorite thing, and I love Drogon, and it was very sad. What did you think about that part?
It was incredible. It looked incredible, and that was one of the most heartbreaking parts. It was, to me, even more heartbreaking than when it happened. His reaction, the probably the being, creature, person, whatever that loves her the most in the world, his reaction. Yeah. The person that's been, he's not a person, but the being that's been the closest to her.
When they bond, that is the term that it is that they bond.
It's just, it was heartbreaking. Yeah. For him.
And I think symbolic as Drogon flies away with Daenerys after this, away from us forever, that's the end of those characters that we've come to love so much, and are the reason that the show became so popular, in my opinion. You know, you can say what you want, and wonderful storytelling and all this stuff, but the dragons are what got people noticed. It was Drogon and Daenerys and the mother of dragons, and those are the things that made this thing become the phenomenon it did. And very bittersweet for them to leave. And so the rest of this will go through relatively fast. So you get a little time jump at a different place than we thought, but you get at least a month. They've arrested Jon. I imagine he surrendered, is my guess. Grey Worm has him and Tyrion. Ultimately, we have like all the characters we talked about that could be in different places.
Yeah, they're all there, and some random people we're not sure who they were, but they look kind of vaguely familiar.
Yeah, I mean, we had like who has to be the Prince of Dorne because he's wearing the Dornish clothes,
and the one boy had to be that boy, but he looked like a kind of a man now, like teenagers.
Yes, the Tully guy or whoever.
The
Moon Door guy.
Yes, that guy. It had to be him.
The guy that tried to say, I should be the king? Was it that
guy?
I don't even know who that guy was.
I don't know who that guy was. He looked familiar, but I don't know who he was.
It was just a lot of random people that we didn't know.
Yeah.
And then all the people we do know. And, so what I read after the fact, I successfully stayed away from spoilers, but I was curious as to why it was. So if you're watching this, you know that Bran is the one that's going to be the king. Why was he the betting favorite? Yeah. And there was a document that leaked this summer.
Okay.
Or last summer. And it had a bunch of bullet points of these are the things that are going to happen in the final season of Game of Thrones. And the final bullet point is Grey Worm has Jon and Tyrion prisoner. He brings Tyrion to all of the lords and ladies. They're trying to decide how to vote on a king. Sam suggested democracy. Everybody laughs at him. Tyrion says it should be Bran.
Oh.
And Bran is picked the king. So it got out.
Oh my gosh.
And I think because I think what happened, because you heard a lot about leaks and you heard, and I just remember I never got spoiled on anything, but I know I saw places where some people were like, this is the first episode where none of the leaks were true. I remember seeing things like that. So I wonder if, and sometimes they were coming true and sometimes they weren't.
Yeah, maybe they were doing false leaks too.
But that's a really specific paragraph.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why he was the betting favorite, because that got out.
Yeah.
And enough people thought it was true. And that's pretty detailed. So, I mean, that is what happens, and we don't got to talk through all that. Like it or not, I thought they used the plot device of Tyrion being the one to convince us that Bran should be king. It worked. Yeah. I have no issue with Bran being king. I think the Sam saying all the people should lead is just kind of the quick nod to, hey, remember all you that live in the modern society, they're like, oh, they should make it a democracy. This is like medieval time stuff. Like it was just like a remember, like that's just not the way it works.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of intentional.
Yeah.
I'm not, I don't know, but there's not a lot to talk about in that scene in this video.
Although I loved it when Arya said, talk about killing my brother again, and I'm going to slit your throat.
I'm going to slit your throat. The big moment is all of the different people are voting yes. Bran can be the king. And Sansa turns to him in a moment where you think Sansa's going to say, I should be the queen. Mm-hmm. At least I did. Because you kind of forgot about the whole independent North thing. And she says that the North wants to be independent. Yeah. Which of course he agrees to because he's from there too. And we begin the end game of the plot where you kind of get your final scenes with everybody. So let's go through each character we care about, and we'll end this video here. Yeah. So we get so Tyrion's arc is he becomes Hand of Bran, which is his punishment, so to speak, because I don't think he wants it. I really don't think he wants it,
and he doesn't think he deserves it. Or I just want to interject.
Go ahead,
we didn't talk about this one thing. This scene earlier on, I know this is out of order, when Tyrion finds Jaime and Cersei.
Oh, devastating. Peter Dinklage. Yeah.
It's so hard on this show because they all did so well. Yeah. But it's just like every scene he was in this episode broke my heart.
I think
he deserves an Emmy.
I think
has he gotten one for this? I don't know. He deserves all.
Peter Dinklage has won a Best Supporting Actor. I think he could be considered lead actor this season. Yeah. And I would be for him winning Best Lead Actor if Kit Harington is Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah.
Dinklage will win an Emmy, I think, because there's less. The females are where it's hard.
Yeah.
Because there is a bunch of
It's
strong
true.
female performances. There's not as many male performances.
Because the female
The guy, the gentleman's in that plays Grey Worm has been fabulous.
Yeah, he's just not in it as much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought that scene was incredibly
heartbreaking.
heartbreaking. You want to get me to cry over Cersei? It's because of Tyrion.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was incredible.
So, and that's just kind of his arc. We get a little funny scene that we'll talk about when we get to the other characters, but he's the hand of Bran.
Yep.
And that's it. I mean, that's kind of, which is good. It was a good happy ending for him, so to speak, even though it wasn't what he wanted.
Yeah.
Bran is the king.
Okay. You know what? And Tyrion actually convinced me, before, I think before I was like, I don't want to be Bran, but Tyrion convinced me. It was like, oh, that does make sense to have someone who can just go into his mind and figure out what happened.
I had no
before.
issue with it. We talked about before. Sense. We hoped it wasn't Bran. I had no issue with it the way it played out.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Good for him. He'll actually probably be a better ruler because he'll be
able to see the mistakes. And the fact that he can't have a kid, and that means the next time we have to.
Right.
They're basically installing. I don't know if it's an oligarchy, but it's a limited democracy.
Right.
It's almost in reality, it's in essence the way the American government works.
Yeah, it's actually true.
Where it is the electoral college.
Yeah.
They've put the electoral college in place.
Well, and ultimately, Dany
broke the wheel.
She broke the wheel. She did. Now, unfortunately, the way it happens, but her goals were met.
Yeah. So let's go quick here because we got to hit the road. So Brienne has a good ending. She is the head of the Kingsguard, but her main scene, which is another just very emotional scene. She finishes the story of Jaime Lannister, and writes all the good stuff.
Yeah.
And the final sentence, he died protecting his queen.
Yeah.
Which, it's emotional that she's the one that wrote it. It's emotional that they finished the story. It's emotional that Jaime said, all my story's ever going to say is that I was the Kingslayer. It's not just, in my opinion, a good ending for Brienne. And I understand if you want to have problems with it, but in my opinion, it was a good ending for Brienne because she all she ever said was Jaime was a good man.
Right.
And that's what the history will show, is the way she wanted to write it.
Right.
But it's also a good ending for Jaime.
Yeah.
Which he didn't necessarily get.
Yeah, I thought it was beautiful.
Sam, we get the nice moment where he presents the book of A Song of Ice and Fire. He didn't write it, the other Maester read it, but that was very nice.
And he's the Maester.
And he's the,
or whatever it is.
I
don't know. He had the chains.
Yeah, I don't remember what that's called.
I don't know.
Grand Maester? Yeah, I think he's the Grand Maester. So that was good for Sam. Bronn is the Master of Coin. Because he did, in fact, get Highgarden. And Davos is like the Navy Master.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Master of ships
the quartermaster, maybe. And so we
He's
get a scene of the council, the small council, and they don't have the other positions filled yet.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of silly. They're talking about what's money on boats or brothels, and I think it's just kind of Tyrion's going, oh, what have I done? I think that was just to give you a glimpse of Tyrion, oh, crap.
These are the people that are running things now?
And Bran shows up, and they do the king stuff, but they're all out of order, and it's very funny. And Bran's like, has anyone seen Drogon? And then he says, maybe I can find him.
Yeah.
And he leaves, and then they go do all their silly stuff. So
I like Podrick was Sir Podrick.
Sir Podrick was the sir that apparently pushes around Bran in the wheelchair. Maybe he also Kingsguard. What I thought was also a very nice touch. I don't even know if you noticed this, but they wore Jaime Lannister gold Kingsguard armor.
I did not notice.
Brienne was in the gold armor of Jaime Lannister, which I don't. Maybe the Kingsguard has always been in gold, but I thought that was nice.
Yeah.
So that's all those characters. Grey Worm gets a satisfying ending after us not liking him much recently. He's gonna go. Well, you talk about that.
That was really touching.
Yeah.
When they're leaving and they're going to Noth. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Noth. It's
Noth.
like AA. So, but they're going to Missandei's country because remember they were talking about where would you go and she'd like to go home again, but they're a peaceful people and they can't defend themselves. And he said, "We'll defend you." And even though she died, he is taking his men and they're going to go defend that country. in honor of her, and I thought that was absolutely beautiful.
And I'm glad that Grey Worm didn't die. I'm glad.
Glad he didn't
The only death
assassinate
we got
anybody.
was Daenerys. There was no other death.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that her turn did not bring him down ultimately.
Yeah.
And I think he's upset or whatever. We don't see anything of the Dothraki. I mean, but they were just going on
They
the
were
horses
happy.
while Daenerys was giving her speech. So
They were
like,
thrilled.
I mean, while I was watching that, I'm like, what exactly are you going to do with all of that? Like, they're used to just being like out in the wilderness
and doing whatever
They're
they
not
want.
going to just chill in the brothel. Like, what are they going to do? So,
that's Bran's problem now.
but the Grey Worm ending was very, very satisfying.
Yeah.
Do we have anyone else besides the Starks?
I mean, Gendry, he was just there with everybody
Gendry
else.
was-
And he's going to be the
yeah.
Lord of Storm's End.
Storm's
Yeah, so
End.
that's it. But he's now a Lord that's going to be in the decision-making process, so good for him.
Gendry,
He was probably the only named important.
yeah, I think that's everybody. I mean, like some of those other people that we couldn't remember were at that kind of council meeting.
Yeah, but I don't recall who they all are.
But everybody got a happy ending out of that group, in essence.
Yeah.
So then we get the main finale, the farewell, and it is that Sansa is going to rule an independent North. Arya says, has anybody ever wondered what's west of Westeros? Because the map's in.
Yeah.
And John's like, no idea. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so she's like, I'm going to go find out. And Jon, his punishment for killing Daenerys is to go to the Night's Watch. So we were right on that.
Yeah.
However, we said,
Right.
we didn't say it'd be his punishment.
thought it'd
We
be
said
more
he'd go
his
to the
choice,
Night's
yeah.
Watch. That he's going to go to the Night's Watch. And that because it's Bran's wisdom, because if they free Jon, the Unsullied are going to start a war.
Mm-hmm.
If they enslave Jon, the North is going to start a war.
Right.
Or if they kill him.
Yeah.
So it was the best thing. And again, it was back to the original way people were punished. So, so we start this journey. So we get this great... it's like Jon is the one that's our narrator for all these farewells, because it's as he's walking through, he's seeing the things happen.
Right.
And you get the farewell scene with the Starks, which is incredibly, incredibly emotional. With Sansa. I don't even know what they said, because I was just...
She apologized to him and
crying
asked,
quite a bit.
and asked to forgive, because they didn't want him. And I don't remember who told Tyrion. I think told them Arya and Sansa did not want this.
Yeah.
But they had to do it.
There was no option.
Yeah. And so she apologized, and they embraced, and it was a beautiful hug, and very, very
important,
and
because
said,
the relationship Jon and Sansa became the most important relationship at the end of the show.
Yeah. And he said that the North's not gonna couldn't have a better leader than her, or something to that effect.
Yeah. And then with Arya, just really, really good, and Maisie Williams didn't have as much to do in this episode as she's had at other parts of the season.
She's done enough.
But when she started crying, it was just so emotional, because that's not that character.
Yeah.
And to see her emotion for Jon was beautiful.
And he asked if she still had needle.
She asked if she still had
Very
needle,
sweet.
and they had a warm embrace. And then with Bran was good, and him kneeling and him apologizing for never being there. And surprisingly, or interestingly, gives him the same line he gave Theon, that you've always been right where you needed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we get we get Jon leaving, and then they get this wonderful montage of like him. He's now in the wall, and he's sheaving up Longclaw, and Arya's sheaving up Needle, and Sansa is putting on a gown that has the weirwood tree colors on it.
Yeah.
And we get their march to their future.
Wherever they're going, yeah.
All together, cutting in and out. And beautiful, beautiful, beautiful scene.
Yes.
And so we see Arya on her ship. Great Stark ship.
Yeah.
Sailing to wherever she's sailing. Away again.
Sailing to adventure.
Away from us. Goodbye, Arya Stark.
Yeah.
A character that will be beloved.
Yes.
For generations. As this story is watched and read and retold, that will be one of the most important fantasy characters of all time. So that was a very... I mean, I even think she smiled on the boat. It was a good ending.
Yeah.
Sansa with just fantastic marching, sitting on the throne, on their throne, being crowned. Of note, Bran's throne is his wheelchair. They showed Tyrion go to a hand chair, and they had the small council. There is no throne for Bran. It's his wheelchair is the throne. Interestingly,
it is interesting.
But Sansa sits on the throne. She gets the crown, beautiful crown, tiara, whatever. It's a crown, really.
Yeah.
And all of the men of the North do the Queen in the North chant, which is just fantastic.
I'm about to cry just remembering it.
Because that scene is so important with Jon.
Yes.
And you see Sansa is not certain when it happens, and she's a little jealous, and what we're just not sure that it happened to her was great.
And she deserves it. She's been the most rational. She's been the one that worries about food and money and how you're actually going to do these things. And so to see her do that and to see all these lords, applaud a Queen of the North was just beautiful and
great.
It was great. And after everything she's been through, and I think one of the podcasts we were talking about that we were listening to, we were talking about how for Sansa in the beginning she wanted to be like the queen because she wanted to be married to the king. And now it's turned into she's doing it because she's going to rule. She's not going to have her king rule for her. She's the ruler. And I thought it was just beautiful. Very emotional and just the way it was interspersed with the other two was just incredible.
Yeah, agree. And then our final scene is Jon. And I have to watch this again. I mean, it can be open for interpretation. So he's been banished to the Night's Watch, technically.
Yeah.
And I think the Night's Watch is just like, just go.
Do what you want.
The people that are still up there that are left, he was the Lord Commander of, and they're loyal to him anyway.
Right.
So ultimately, what happened? He walks in, he sees Tormund, which is nice. We don't get any dialogue. We don't get any dialogue from Jon at all in this. I will say I am very appreciative that it broke him to kill Daenerys.
Yeah.
He's disheveled.
Yeah.
He's not handsome anymore. I mean, he is, but he's intentionally made to not look handsome.
Yeah.
He's made to look devastated.
He's a broken man, yeah.
And inconsolable. And so you don't, even though when Tormund shows up, you smile, you don't get a great big bear hug and Jon Snow.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't want that. He wouldn't be receptive to that. It's very somber. And Tormund probably knows. Tormund knows what happened.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he understands.
It felt like Tormund was waiting for him.
Yeah, he understands how that would affect him. Because they've been, a very strong relationship for a very long time. And then a moment that made me audibly cheer, and we talked about, did they have intentional misdirection, where Ghost is there, and yes, he embraces Ghost, and that's the only time we see, but even then, he's not like, he doesn't speak, he's not really smiling, he just goes and embraces him. And then you see the wildlings, it's all wildlings, and Jon and Tormund leave north of the wall, and they walk through the forest, almost in a scene that is very similar to the way we would see White Walkers at times. The final shot of the scene was through some trees in the snow, the backs of the wildlings. We did see the sprout. So the final book is going to be called A Dream of Spring. We saw the sprout of a plant coming up through the snow, green. That was intentional. But and then it just fades to black. It's another version of the Game of Thrones theme. And they're marching away away from us. Away from us. I took it because this is an impactful thing. The show to me, the story to me is meaningful. Sansa finished facing us, ruling. Tyrion and the council finished facing us. Bran finished facing us. Daenerys and Drogo left us. Arya left us. Jon left us. You could say those ended up being the three very most important characters to the show, and their backs were away. And even though Arya had a decently happy ending, and I would say all things considered, Jon got a better ending than he could have, but he had to be broken. So your thoughts on the final start montage, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was emotional. I had said several weeks ago that I hoped Arya would make it through all of this, because I want to see what comes. And I didn't want her to finish her list. I wanted her to turn away, even before she did with the Hound. I wanted her to not need that anymore. And I didn't know what the future would look like for her. I didn't know what she would do. So being able to come up with, she's just going to explore and have adventure and go see what's out there, thought it was great. And it seemed like something the character would do.
Boy, I tell you, if somebody out there is pitching the misadventures of Arya the pirate, trying to get Maisie Williams to sign up, because that's money right there.
Yeah, it is. I thought that was great. And the ghost scene in the Torment, all of that was great, and him just joining the Wildlings. And because I think that is a good ending for him. It's not happy yet, but I think he can find happiness. I think he liked his time with the Wildlings. I think he enjoys being up there and being kind of free and doing what
If you subtract that he's broken from killing Daenerys, he will be happier in that life than he would have been if Daenerys wouldn't have turned and they would have just went and taken the crown and they got married.
Right. And
he'll
be happier than being the king. He didn't want to do that, any of that stuff. Right. He'll be happier just not having all that pressure on him. But of course he's going to have to live with having killed Daenerys his whole life. So it's not necessarily happy, but that was beautiful. I thought.
And I can only imagine, again, the pacing we talked about in the past. The pacing was it was very rushed.
Yeah.
To the last 2 seasons. Imagine how gut-wrenching the Jon to Daenerys scene had been if the reason, because he loves her and we're like, well, you only met her like an hour ago.
Right. Yeah.
If it had been the 5 years or however long, it would have just been, because it was devastating.
Well, and that's what I mean when they did so well on this finale, because it was rushed and all that stuff. But like you said, from where it started in this episode, it was incredible. It turned me into, I need to rewatch it like soon. Yeah. Now I want to watch that episode again. Like it was just like, and last week's episode was the first one I didn't want to watch again immediately. But this one, it's like I want to watch it again. I want to watch the whole series. So like it brought me back to, I think I can watch it. Last week's just crushed my heart so much I was not sure I could do it. This week's built my heart back and made it to where, okay, I want to watch back through Arya's storyline. I want to watch back through these things.
Yeah, and it's hard. Yeah, if you're a Dany fan like I was, like you are, it's hard that she has a bad ending or a sad ending.
Yeah,
not bad.
Yeah, it's sad.
Incredibly written, in my opinion. Devastating.
Yeah, it's devastating.
I mean, Romeo and Juliet didn't have a happy ending either.
Right.
But the Starks won.
Yeah.
All 4 of them.
Yeah.
And it's hard to argue with that. I mean, this show has always been about the Starks from the very beginning. So, this is farewell to Game of Thrones, the television series, at least in its proper canon. We'll be excited to see when the prequels come and things like that, and the books and everything else. But I'm glad that you watched it. Victoria Watt got caught up right after she graduated from grad school and watched like 70 episodes in a week or something like that.
Yes.
And I'm very glad you did, because I caught up on Harry Potter maybe in time to watch the last few movies with you. And I had read the books, so we got to experience that together too, which is, your big book and TV fan. So I'm glad we got to do this together.
Yeah, I am
I'm very grateful for that.
Yes.
So any final words for our friends?
Yes, friends, great. Hope y'all enjoyed it. To Benioff and Weiss, incredible. And the fact that they directed this as well, this episode, it was so beautiful. I think they did an incredible job. Yeah, and they really, really
people were hesitant because they don't direct.
Yes. But some of the imagery and some of the scenes and the visuals were absolutely stunning, and I thought they did an incredible job.
To the people out there, and I'll delete it if you leave in my comments, but that are, oh wow, Benioff and Weiss, now they're going to give them a Star Wars and they're going to ruin that. If you're that type of person, you didn't really watch this, and you didn't take it in. It was very impactful, very emotional, and the imagery was incredible. And it's just, it was great. It was great. Could there have been things in this story that I would have done differently? Absolutely. But for the story that was told, the story that was given to them, remember.
Right.
The story of Daenerys and Jon was given to them. That is not their creation. Yeah. Because I believe with all of my heart that George Martin would be saying, that ain't what happens, folks.
Right.
If there's not some element of that's what happens. If it's Daenerys actually is benevolent and good and frees all the poor people and starts a charity, he would be like, oh, these people crazy. He'd be saying that. It's not, it's what's going to happen in the books. So I very, very grateful to the last 10 years this show has given for me for fun and enjoyment, and I'm very much looking forward to the documentary.
Yeah.
2 hours
Yeah.
now more than ever.
Yeah.
And that's it. We liked it.
Yeah, very much.
David, did you like it? David's ready to go
Sleep.
home. Thanks for watching Before and After. Give him a squeeze it.
Squeeze it.
Talk to you next time.